Today I want to address a question that's brought to me a lot. And it's usually phrased something like, isn't it arrogant to believe that Jesus is the only way to be made right with God? And I can understand where the question's coming from, because there are many different beliefs out there. And to say that Jesus is, and belief in Jesus is the only way to be made right with God, that is kind of closed-minded, and that's narrow. But I would say I don't believe it's arrogant. And this is why. As I've studied the life of Jesus, especially towards the end of his life, a couple things have become very clear to me. One of them is that he said he was the only way. In John 14:6, Jesus said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. There's no way to the Father but through me." And as I've wrestled with, well, what did he exactly mean by that? I can't get away from the thought that, and the understanding that he was saying that he's the only way to be made right with God. So he made that statement. But not only did he make that statement, I would say his life backed up the position that he held that statement. Shortly before his death, this is just one example. Shortly before his death, he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he went to God in prayer and said, "Father, if it's possible, take this cup from me, but not your will, but mine be done." As I've studied that passage, it seems to be that Jesus is saying, God, I don't really want to go through what I'm going to have to go through on the cross in his humanity. But if it is the only way for mankind to be made right with you, I'm willing to do it. He didn't want to do it, but he was willing to if there was no other way. And shortly after that time, he willingly went to the cross and he died. There doesn't seem to be any other reason than that he believed, he was convinced that he was the only way to be made right with. His death and resurrection would be the only way for mankind to be made right with God. So I've got to wrestle with it. So here's Jesus talking about being the only way. Evidence in his life showed that he believed that he was the only way, and there's more. I just shared one brief thing. He also died for that. Now, there have been people who've talked about beliefs, who've lived for those beliefs, and who died for those beliefs. And for someone to say they're a follower of that person and not hold to the thing that they talked about, lived for, and died for, that wouldn't make any sense. How would that person be able to say they're a follower of that person without holding to the things that they held core and they were willing to talk about, live for, and die for? It's the same way with followers of Jesus. As a follower of Jesus, it's the only appropriate position for me to take as someone who's convinced that he believed he was the only way. He lived for that and he died for that. For me to take any other position would be hypocritical, nonsensical, whatever term you have for it. So no, I don't believe it's an arrogant position. I believe it's the only reasonable position for me to take. Now let me put a quick disclaimer on this. Just because I believe that Jesus is the only way, because of what he taught, lived for, and died for, that doesn't make me better than anyone who holds a different view. It doesn't make me better than them. It doesn't make me more devout than them. But at the end of the day, for me to hold anything different than what Jesus held to at his core would not be appropriate.